Alrighty, we're going to go ahead and get started. So welcome to InDesign Basics. My name is Megan. I'm a library services representative at the Plano Public Library, and I will be presenting today's program, and I'm going to be assisted by Nikki, who will be monitoring the chat and assisting with tech support. Go ahead and say hi, Nikki.
Hi, everyone.
Alrighty, I just wanted to go ahead over some guidelines for today's virtual program before we get started. You will be muted during this class and will have your video blocked, so you will only see the instructor's screen. At the top of your screen, you can find an exit full screen option if you need to get to any other things on your computer. You are welcome to ask questions or request that the instructor repeat information at any time during today's program. You should see an icon at the bottom of your screen that says chat. You'll go ahead and click on that to open the chat window, and then the chat is set to be seen by library staff only. If you prefer, you can also use the Q&A feature, and we'll either answer your question directly through chat or we'll answer it out loud. Please note that any inappropriate questions or comments will cause immediate removal from today's class. We may hold your question until a break or a stopping point, or we'll share the question at the time if it's more pressing. On our website, we also have some additional resources such as databases that supplement today's programs. We will be using the instructor's screen to demonstrate, and Nikki may share some additional resources in the chat as well. We're also live streaming this program on our YouTube channel, and the recording will be available in a few days. So if you would like to go over today's program again and practice with it, that's an option. And with those ground rules out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. So this is today's class agenda. We're going to be reviewing the Adobe InDesign software, how to navigate the workspace, access tools, panels, and more to design different projects. And this will be a very basic overview, so don't worry if you've never used InDesign before. That's the purpose of this class. And before we jump into the InDesign content, I just want to give a quick disclaimer. I am not an Adobe Creative Cloud expert. I am a library staff member, and the purpose of today's program is to provide a tutorial for how to utilize the Adobe InDesign software for various projects and to cover the basics of its usage. So this class will not make you an expert in InDesign, but it will inform you on some of the basics and give you some tools to continue exploring further with Adobe InDesign. For more Adobe expertise, we do recommend connecting with our other Plano Public Library resources, such as LinkedIn Learning, Udemy, and our YouTube channel. And Nikki is going to drop links in the chat to those resources for you. We'll also share a link to our Book a Librarian service at the end of this program, where you can request one-on-one assistance from a librarian. Alrighty. So let's get into our demonstration, but first I'm going to share a little bit about what InDesign is and what it's used for. So Adobe InDesign is an industry standard publishing application for print and digital media. It allows ease of access for page layout and web design, and it's used for all sorts of things, including flyers, books, magazines, newspapers, interactive PDFs, and more. And this software was first released in 1999 and has been consistently updated with new software releases since. Part of the appeal of Adobe InDesign as a publishing application is that it works collaboratively with other programs in the Adobe Creative Cloud family. So it works pretty seamlessly with programs like Photoshop, Illustrator, and other Adobe products, which can be really useful when you're juggling a lot of graphics and design elements and want to combine them all in one place. Alrighty, so now I'm going to switch my screen over to InDesign and we'll go over a demonstration. Alrighty, do you see my InDesign screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So when you launch InDesign, from the Adobe Creative Cloud app. This is what it's going to look like. The start screen. So you can either select from these presets here that'll kind of get you going quickly. They have kind of templates designed for like a standard sheet of paper, digital documents to be viewed on an iPad, websites, etc. And they also have more presets here under print, web, and mobile. So you can feel free to explore those. We can also customize our own file settings by clicking New File here, or opening a previously used file under Open. So in our new file that we're going to be exploring with today, we're going to go ahead and name it under Preset Details here. I'm going to go ahead and name it Basics Program. And then our default setting here is going to be like a letter size sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11 inches. Here under units, we do have a variety of design units to choose from. A lot of these are more for more advanced like graphic design, like picas are used a lot, pixels for web design. We're going to go ahead and stick with inches right now just for familiarity. And then it'll auto shift the units here to inches. So we have 8.5 inches width, 11 inches height. Also here under orientation, we have the orientation of the page, portrait. If you hover over it, you can see the words as well, and landscape. And then if you want your document to have more than one page, you can add those here as well. This box here is for facing pages, meaning if you're designing like a booklet and you want your pages to lay themselves out like a book, you would check that. So I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that. And then if you have more than one page, you can also choose which page your document will start on. Here you can insert columns for if you're like wanting to make a brochure or something, that would be a good use of columns. I'm going to go ahead and click preview down here so you can see a little bit of what I'm talking about. If I do columns 1, 2, 3, it'll insert my columns here. And then I can also mess with the column gutter, which will be the space between the columns, like so. But I'm going to go ahead and go back to one column for today. All right. Then for margins, that'll be this space around the edge of the page here. It defaults to 0.5 inches, but you can adjust those as you see fit. Right now, all of these measurements are linked. So when I adjust one margin, all of the margins go with it. If I wanted to edit just the top margin, for example, I could click this chain right here. It's complete and now broken, meaning I can make the top margin as big as I want it. Alrighty. And then bleed and slug are some terms specific to graphic design that are going to be used in InDesign a lot. Bleed is going to be, bleed is like when you have a cover page, for example, that you want to have like a big graphic on. And when you print that page, you want your graphic to go all the way to the edge. You don't want any white space once it's been printed. So the bleed makes sure that that there's no white space. So I'm going to go ahead and set it to 0.25 inches, and it'll be this red line around the outside here. And then slug is only really used for like publishing. So you might have a slug in your document to include like specific notes for your publisher about how you want something to be printed or whatever specifications they may have for you. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the slug off, but I will show you what it looks like. So basically, it extends outside of the bleed zone, and you can add like notes and things that won't appear in your final document, but will be able to be viewed by your publisher. All right. So before I continue, are there any questions about basic document setup?
Right now, there are no questions in the chat.
Alrighty. So we're going to go ahead and click create. And now we have our document. All right. So now we'll go over some of the workspace setup and what all of these millions of tiny buttons mean and how you can use those. When you're using InDesign, it first and foremost is a publishing platform. So you want to think about what the end goal of your project is going to be. When you're setting up the document, when you're establishing the layout, and when you're starting to add in your graphic and textual elements. So in this case, I'm using like a letter size piece of paper. So I could be making a flyer. If I was going to make like a postcard, I would probably want to make my document size a lot smaller so it would fit those, so it would, look like a postcard, etc. And InDesign in the past few years has implemented a lot more templates, so you can do like mobile displays and optimize your designs for like websites and stuff like that. Alrighty. And one more important thing about InDesign, there are a lot of ways to do everything, meaning there are multiple ways to complete the same task, basically, and you are able to do like whatever is more comfortable for you or what feels right. So don't feel like you have to do things in InDesign a certain way because it's what I'm showing today. You are able to kind of explore and see what works for you and your design style, if that makes sense. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and go over some of the buttons here at the top. So up here is going to be the menu bar. If you press home right here, it'll take you back to this home page where we just were. And then file has some standard kind of options like save, export, print, etc. Layout has more to do with the layout of the page. You can also add columns here if you didn't add them when you opened your document at first. Type has to do with text, object with objects like photos, graphics, etc. You can also add tables in InDesign, so that's where you would do that here. And then view, you can zoom in, you can zoom out. It deals with how you view the page, and there's also the ability to zoom in and out down at the bottom here. All right, and then here in window is where you can adjust kind of your workspace and what tools and panels you want to have open. All right, and then over here, there's also a share button. It wants you to save your file so before you're able to share it, but basically you can share the link to your document. You can invite people to view your document as a PDF, etc. And then over here we have the workspace switcher, sorry, where you can change essentially what your workspace looks like and how it's laid out. So this is another thing that is really dependent on what you're wanting to do with InDesign and what you feel most comfortable using. We have Essentials. We have Essentials Classic, which is kind of a older layout style. And then if you were wanting to make a book, for example, you have a preloaded book workspace that'll have a lot of the things you'll need if you were doing a book project. You can also create your own custom workspace down here at New Workspace, where you can decide what you think you're going to be using and save that for future use. Alrighty, any questions about the menu bar area?
Right now, we don't have any questions in the chat.
Okay, perfect. Okay, and then on this right side here is going to be your panels. So this will be things you can click on to expand and mess around with more. This will come into play more when we're actually putting elements on the page and wanting to use character or paragraph styles, change colors of things, etc. And then on the left side here is going to be our toolbar. So this little tiny arrow right here allows you to kind of condense the toolbar into 2 rows, or you can shrink it and just have it as one long row. So that's just your preference. And then there are a lot of tools here that are used for a lot of different things. And there is a full kind of guide and outline to all these tools in the handout for today's class, which Nikki has posted in the chat. That being said, the most common and most used tools in InDesign are going to be this top selection tool here, this type tool, and then the rectangular frame tool. And that'll allow you to place text boxes, to place graphics or photos, and then to basically select and move all of your items around. All right. And then as you can see, when I select the tool, it'll have a dark gray box. So that's how you know it's selected. And then it'll go back to light gray when you click off of it. And just be aware of which tool you have selected because it impacts what you're able to do with elements on the page. For example, I'm going to go ahead and place a text box by selecting the type tool. I can then click and drag to place however big or small I want my text box to be. And now I'm able to type in my text box. So I'm going to type example. But you can see that when I have the type tool selected, I can type in this box, but I can't manipulate the box. I can't shrink or expand it. And I can't move it around the page. So to do that, you would have to have the selection tool selected. And now you can see the corners where you can click and drag. I can select and move it around like this, but I'm not able to type. For that, you would have to go back to the type tool. And that's one of the things I would say takes the most getting used to with InDesign, just knowing which tool you have selected and what that tool is doing. You'll also notice that once you have the type tool selected, you have access to more features up at the top here and in this little bar right underneath the box. So that'll be things like our font, our size, and different text and paragraph formatting settings. Then when we click back to the selection tool, it changes to other like non-text based settings. All right, so let's go ahead and I'm going to change the font to Poor Richard and increase the size. And center align, just as an example. Now I'll show you the rectangle frame tool. It works the same way as the text box. You just select it. You'll see this little arrow target looking thing, and then you can click and drag however big you want your frame rectangle to be. And it creates this box with an X in the middle. A good practice when using InDesign is to lay out your page how you want it before you start adding the content in, just so you can see kind of the proportions of everything and how it's going to look when you've finished. Alrighty, so that is the frame rectangle tool. So you can insert text and graphics from other applications directly into InDesign. This is a situation where Adobe programs can work really well with each other. You can insert files directly from Illustrator, for example, but you can also insert text from applications like Word, so it's not limited to just Adobe products. Rather than using insert, InDesign uses the term place. So I'll go ahead and show you how to do that. Okay. So you can place without having a frame selected. Like if you wanted to place a photo, for example, but you don't know where you want it yet, you are able to just come here to File and select Place and select whatever photo you want to place in the document. So I'll go ahead and select the star and hit Open. You see here, though, that basically it's like floating here. It wants me to pick somewhere to put it. I can just stick it in the document like this, but it'll basically insert itself in the original dimensions of the photo. This can be really kind of large and unwieldy to try to deal with in the context of your document. So an easier way to do it, and I'll go ahead and click Control Z to get rid of that photo and hit Escape to stop it from following me around. If you go to File, Place, or Control D with one of your frames selected and select that star, it'll kind of automatically insert itself into this frame, and then you can manipulate it accordingly. So now we have this photo in the frame, but obviously it's not fit proportionally to this frame size. So to fix that, we can right-click and go to Fitting and Fit Content Proportionally. So this will make it to where the entirety of the content proportionally fills the frame. There are also other options such as filling the frame proportionally, fitting the frame to the content, so that changes the size of the frame to fit the picture you have inserted, and then fitting the content to the frame. You'll see here when we insert a photo into InDesign, we have this hand tool when we're hovering over the photo. I'm going to go ahead and switch back to fit content proportionally. There we go. So you see this little hand tool right here when you're hovering over the image. This allows you to kind of move the photo around within the frame. So if you see this little kind of brownish box, that's the photo within the frame. So I can move it over here. I can move it over here, or I can move it back into the center. All right. Any questions about placing graphics in InDesign?
Currently, we don't have any questions in the chat.
All right. Another thing I want to point out with graphics and photos is that sometimes when you place a photo, it might not look kind of as high quality as you want your image to look. So if you go here to display performance and do high quality display, that can fix that issue. Alrighty. Okay, next I want to go over some things about the text box. So we have our text box selected
Megan,
here.
real quickly.
Yeah.
We did have a question pop up. Can you edit the image, like change the color or crop, for example?
You can change the crop. I know that. There's actually a I believe there's a tool for it if I can find it.
And then I'll hop in real quick to answer the color. One, because it's an image that's being uploaded that already existed, you would have to edit it before you inserted it into InDesign. Unless it was something you were creating in InDesign, then you would be able to edit. But since this was like a logo that was inserted, you would have to edit the original file first as far as color goes.
There's also an option here that you can edit with and select like a photo editing software. So you could open it directly into another program to do that. All right. Any other questions before I move on?
Okay, I'm not seeing any more pop up.
All right, perfect. And then quickly before we move on, image files that you can insert into InDesign. There are a lot of different kinds of images that InDesign will accept. You can do the standard like JPEG, PNG, SVG, and like I said, you can also insert Illustrator or Photoshop files. All right, and then in terms of text, you can also, similarly to inserting images, you can also place text. So I'm going to create a new text box to show you that. Under File, you can again, with this text box selected, go to File, Place. I don't have any documents that I want to insert, so I'm not going to do that. But if I did have like a Word document, for example, I could import that Word document and that text would autofill into this frame. You might have to adjust some of the formatting or the fonts, but it will import the body of the text into your InDesign document. what if, for example, you're designing a flyer and you kind of know what you want the flyer to look like, but you're not exactly sure what the text will say yet? You can also fill your text frame with what's called placeholder text. So if you right click on your text box, there's an option here that says fill with placeholder text. If you click that, it'll just autofill with the Latin gibberish, basically. And that's a good way to kind of give you a visual of what your final document is going to look like when you don't necessarily have all the information in it yet. Now that I have this placeholder text, I can do what I would do with any other body of text: change the font, change the size, and then I can also go to the panels on the right side here and mess around with the color. All right, now I want to show you a feature on the panel side called Align. This basically will help you align your objects in InDesign. InDesign already makes it pretty easy for you to align objects to the page and to each other with the use of these kind of guiding lines. So if you see when I move around this text box, this pink line here means it's aligned to the page, while this green line means it's aligned to the box underneath it. So it's aligned to this one here. I can also move it down and align it horizontally as well. And then if you're wanting to align multiple objects at once, this is where the align feature comes in handy. So if I go ahead and shift click and select these three boxes, right now it is set to align to selection. But if I wanted, for example, for all of these objects to be left aligned to this page, I can select align to page, left align, and they'll all come right to the edge of the page. If I decide that, maybe I should align, maybe I don't want it that far to the edge of the page, maybe I should align to the margin. You can also select align to margins, left align, and it'll align itself to this margin. So this can be a really handy tool when you're dealing with a lot of elements on your page and you want them all to align with each other or with the page. All right, and then I also want to show you character and paragraph styles. So these are used to kind of quickly apply formatting to text, paragraphs, or graphics. I'll go ahead and go to paragraph styles. Down here in paragraph styles, you can create a new style. Paragraph style 1, you can double click to edit. And then you can basically change the settings and apply to this style. All right, I'll go ahead and select a font, a size, and you can select things like indentions and spacing. I'm going to go ahead and select center. You can change the indent. You can do all sorts of things. So this is a good thing to kind of mess around with and explore in InDesign. So I'll go ahead and hit OK. So paragraph style 1, if I want to apply this paragraph style, I can select my text box and then hit paragraph style 1. So that'll change my font, it'll change my alignment to the center and apply all of my kind of pre-existing settings to this paragraph. And the same is true of character styles and of objects. Alrighty, any questions about that?
Right now, the chat is clear.
All right. And then I also, on this side, want to briefly go over pages. So when we created this document, we started with one page, but maybe you get into InDesign, you start designing, and you realize you want another page. You can go to this Pages panel over here and add new pages, like so. It'll default to the new page, but you can always scroll up or down. And then this is what I was talking about earlier with the pages that appear next to each other, like for a booklet. You can also create what are called parent pages, where everything from the parent page, like headers, footers, can be applied or removed from all pages. So that would be a good thing to implement if you're designing like a book, for example. All right, and then I want to briefly go over saving and exporting projects before I move on. Are there any other questions?
The chat is still clear.
Alrighty. So when saving in InDesign, you can come up here to File and Save or Save As. When you just hit Save As in InDesign, it's going to default to an INDD file type, which is a file specific to Adobe InDesign, which makes sharing this document difficult unless whoever you're sending it to or whatever you're using it for also has the InDesign program, because you're not able to open it without InDesign installed. So that being said, you still can save as an InDesign document if you're going to continue working on the project later, for example, and you want to keep it in the INDD file type. So I'll hit save here. And then now that I'm saved, I can come over here to share and create a link or invite people to view my document. So I just wanted to share that now that we've saved. Because the INDD file type can be really limiting for people who don't have InDesign, that's where we come to the export feature. So export allows you to export created files to 13 different file types. So if you hit export, you can choose what kind of document you're wanting to save your project as. So we have EPUB if you're making a book, for example. We have JPEG, PNG. We also have Adobe PDF for print and Adobe PDF for interactive. So once you've selected what type of document you want to export your project as, you can rename it, hit save, and it'll come up with some settings about exporting. It'll ask you like which pages. If you want to just export a range of pages, you can do that. And then you can also adjust settings on what you want the quality and the compression of your item to be, and then some accessibility options as well. So once you hit export, it might give you a warning to say, and then you have exported your PDF. All right. Any questions about saving and exporting?
Right now, there are no questions in the chat.
Alrighty. Well, that concludes my InDesign demo portion of this program. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back to my PowerPoint, where we're going to go over some Plano Public Library resources and upcoming programs. Sorry, give me 1 second to get my PowerPoint back up. All right, do you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So now I'm going to talk about some additional resources you can use to kind of further your knowledge of InDesign that are available to you either just like free on the internet or through Plano Public Library with your library card. So Nikki is going to drop the link to these resources in the chat for your reference if you want to copy them, save them for later, or open them up right now and start exploring. So first we have the Adobe Help X site. This is like directly from Adobe. They have this whole site set up with an InDesign user guide. It goes into beginner tutorials as well as more advanced tutorials. They have videos. It's a really, really good resource for InDesign and for other Adobe programs. We also have LinkedIn Learning resources. This is a database or a website you can access through the Plano Public Library with your library card. They also have beginner classes and more advanced classes as you kind of increase your knowledge of InDesign. Same thing with Udemy. So Nikki is going to link some specific classes on those sites in the chat. You can follow the link directly to them, log in with your library card, and then you'll have access to those classes for later. We also have the Plano Public Library YouTube channel. So there will be a recording of this class and recordings of past InDesign classes on that YouTube channel as well for your reference. And then if you're wanting more one-on-one assistance with a specific project using InDesign, that's where Book a Librarian might come in handy. That's a service that can allow you to kind of basically book a chunk of time with a librarian and have them assist you one-on-one. So that can be a great resource. Additionally, if you're not sure if you want to commit to purchasing Adobe InDesign or any Adobe product, as they can be very expensive, we do have Adobe computers available for your use in all 5 Plano libraries. So we'll have an Adobe computer out on the public floor, and then we also have a digital creation space that you can reserve with access to computer software and different hardware like a DSLR camera, a microphone, and those kinds of things. So if you're wanting to explore InDesign but aren't quite ready to commit to purchasing it for yourself, or you just have no interest in purchasing it for yourself, the library can be a great place to start exploring that. Do we have any questions about InDesign, about additional resources, or anything else?
Right now, the chat's clear.
All right. I'm also going to mention some upcoming programs. Nikki is going to link the calendar in the chat. These are basically some upcoming technology adjacent programs that you might enjoy if you're interested in this kind of topic. So we have Unreal Engine coming up in about 2 weeks, another Tuesday night at 6:30. And then we're also going to have Photoshop Basics next month. Okay, I have a final call for questions.
Okay, not seeing any questions yet, but I do see a thank you so much. Great presentation.
Thank you. All right, I'll go ahead and leave this open for a few more minutes. So if you want to copy any links or download the handout, you're able to do that. And then also, if you would like to rewatch the recording at a later date, it'll be available on our YouTube channel in a few days. So thank you all for coming, and I hope you feel like you've learned something about InDesign.